What's going on, San Angelo, Texas? Welcome to episode 116 of season 7 of Talking Throws Podcast, Texas Style. I'm Coach Jason.
And I'm Coach Janelle.
And we are throws coaches with the track club, the Thorn Factory. You can go to our website at thornfactory.com to check out our bios. If you're looking for lessons online and maybe you live out of state or you live in San Antonio, you can still go to the site, maybe set up an appointment. We can train you online. Or even willing to maybe meet halfway, coming in person. If we don't fit your needs, we have other coaches at other locations. Coach Jarvis East at the Thorn Factory, our new coach Casey Keeter north at the Thorn Factory. He's in the greater Wichita Falls area. And then also Morgan Knight runs Night Power and Performance in the greater Abilene area. So if you go to the website, thethornfactory.com, and you scroll down to the bottom of the homepage, you'll see links for Fiber Sports Discus, fourthrows.com, using that code TalkingThrows10 to get 10% off. But also we're partnered with a new company, Present Moment Mindset. Present Moment Mindset, that's a website. It's ran by a previous episode guest, Michelle Gregovich. We're trying to optimize mental health for sports performance as well. So if you're a young athlete, maybe a coach that's kind of having, some hurdles you might need to kind of deal with, she is the person that can help you get over those hurdles. So that website again is Present Moment Mindset. Be sure to go follow and like her social media as well. We'd like to thank our sponsors for season 7. Without them, we can't do what we do. First off, Texas Track and Field Coach Association. That website is ttfca.org. Everything you need to know for track and field in the state of Texas, whether it's indoor meets, outdoor meets, rules, record books, anything you need to know, ttfca.org is a website. Fourthrows.com. Quality implements priced right. You can use the code TalkingThrows10 to get that 10% off. Right now, if you're looking for shot puts, if you're looking for training disc, if you're looking for high quality discus, hammers, javelins, whatever you need, go to the website fourthrows.com. Use the code TalkingThrows10 to get that 10% off. If you're in need of strength training, whether you're a coach wanting to implement strength training in your throwers, we got the guy that can help you out. Ready Up Athletic Development, ran by Zach Phillips. He's out of the greater Austin area. He's put together a program called Basic Throw Strength. You can go to the site Train Heroic and use the code Throws10 to get 20% off. The program is called Basic Throw Strength. It's on the site Train Heroic. Use the code Throws10 to get that 20% off. One of our longtime sponsors, Fiber Sports Discus, a new way to get the distance. It's not just about the rim weight. Ran by Bruce Caldwell. You can go order directly from him, or you can go to fourthrows.com and use that code that we mentioned earlier. Also, a new sponsor for this season is NTX Timing, read by Carl Hornback and his crew. If you're looking to do a meet and you want to get the results published, NTX Timing is the best in the business. They're going to help you do seating, report generation, timing, post live results, and everything's internet. That's going to be much just right there on the spot. That website is ntxtiming.com. If you have any questions, you can reach out to Carl Hornback for more information. Also, Big Frogs and Lifting DFW, we thank them for what they do. Remind everybody, too, just to go out and download the podcast on all Spotify, Apple, anywhere you get your podcast, we're going to be on it. So just subscribe and also give us your opinion, and then remind everybody, too, about our YouTube channel as well. Today's guest is currently the throws coach at Angelo State. She has a lifetime PR set last year in the hammer of 65.88. That's 65.88. She is preparing to try to go to the trials this year to try to make the Olympics. She's had coaching stops at Chadron State, at Tiffin, at Southwest Minnesota State. She is a graduate from Southern Illinois, Edwardsville, where she broke 12 school records.
All right, welcome to part 2 with Coach Virgl, episode 117.
Because I think back of what would I have done if I was my own coach? And I genuinely look back at my college experience and be like, Yeah, I got everything that I could get out of my body at that point in time. That was everything I think I could have done. And so was my wine necessarily the greatest? No. I've always here I'll throw you up on my window still so I can have my hands free. I disregard how messy my office is. But I've always had a really hard time, I'll sit, catching off this right side, especially when my shoulder got really bad.
Yeah.
So the problems that I had with my shoulder was my AC joint was really worn down, and then I had an anterior labrum tear. It was very small. I didn't get any surgery or anything for it either. I did the 8 weeks off, and it healed really, really well. But when you wind and you catch, I would have a really hard time catching, which I didn't know at the time when I was in college. So I would drop it really low to avoid that confrontation or that pressure.
Yeah.
And then keep it really steep, and I would just follow that path because I didn't know how to build an orbit yet, and I wasn't necessarily strong enough to either. And that's what my college whined with. Then after I finished my eligibility, I gained a little bit of weight and got up to about 185 pounds. I started trying to flatten it out more and let the ball run left more, and then engage with it more over here, which was fine. It worked for a while, and it worked really well for me for a while. The only problem is I didn't compete for about 3 years in Hammer, just due to various life circumstances and COVID and moving around a bunch and all sorts of crazy things that went on in my life. So by the time I was finally competing, I was up at Chadron State, and my shoulder had really been through it. And things were starting to fall apart, and I was starting to get stronger. You know, I was about 205 pounds when I moved to Chadron. I was a lot stronger in my legs. I'd taken a lot of time to really develop strength-wise and be able to put a lot of power into the ball. And all of a sudden, catching here and trying to build that power wasn't necessarily working for me anymore with the shoulder that I had.
Yeah.
So with my wines, I do something really weird now that takes a lot of the pressure off of it. I don't know if it's going to be feasible. I'm going to try not to.
Yeah, you're good.
Yes, this is good.
So I have always started with the ball behind me on the right side.
Yeah.
And I push it forward low and slow, and then I come over my head here.
Yeah.
Now, what I have started to do is instead of starting it right here off my right foot behind me and push it forward, I've started to bring it further back and push it out. Which sounds weird. It brings it out a little bit more flat, and then it makes it not such a steep catch. I can reach back, because I'm a really flexible person. I can reach back a little bit back and ease into the push a little easier and still get a lot of connection, a lot of push without trying to catch here and put that pressure on my shoulder. And then one other thing that I've noticed that it does is if I start back here, start out more, and work it more flat, is it establishes a longer posture here as I go into the throw.
Wow. Do you all set your feet, then step into it after the first or second wine?
I do not. And that has been something I tried it in college. I never took to it. I know a lot of people who take to it. I never did. I've toyed with the idea of adding it again in the next year or so. But for me, I'm really, really flexible for, no reason, I guess. And I've always felt like, stepping back and adding that long step in, I always had a hard time because I felt like I was trying to catch a moving target with my connection. Whereas I've always just liked the static feet and having that be consistent. One thing I do or have started doing, and I named this after, I called it the junk toe, because the kid that inspired the thought was Justin Jenks at CSU Pueblo. And he's a lefty, and we turned his left toe out to help on the wind. So for me, it would be turning my right toe out, but I still have the static feet. And he was the one that inspired that idea. And so now I call it the junk toe, because I tell kids that I work with, if you inspire me to think of something in a new way, you get whatever that cue is named after you. So to this day, I talked about it the other week, and I gave them the whole story of Justin Jenks is the reason why this cue exists. And so, yes, to me, that is called the junk toe. So I will turn my toe out, but that is how I wind essentially.
Well, that leads me to the next question. So, are you a heel toe on that first turn or toe toe?
So I'm a toe turner. I've
Okay.
always been a toe turner since my sophomore year of college.
Okay.
And some of it is I am just really comfortable with it because I did ballet from kindergarten all the way to 5th grade and then did dance team in high school. I am really, really comfortable turning on my toes. And I just, with having that experience, picked up the toe turn so quickly in college. Because my freshman year, I was a 3-turner. And I've always had a little bit of issues with my left knee. And it's just that first turn just always felt so awkward as a heel turner. And when I added that toe turn, I just felt so much more in control. My sophomore year, we added that extra turn. Now I've refined it a lot since then because it at first was just to save effort. But I really, 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 really like set my phone back up on my window here. I really liked my ability to, with the toe turn, let the ball get a little bit further left than I can comfortably do with a heel turn. And I found that to be very helpful for me because I'm a very impatient thrower. I like to jump the gun a little bit. I like to not let it run left. So if I start off well and I let the ball run left, then I have the ability to catch better and continue the momentum with my heel turns. Whereas, and this might be something I change down the road because I'm getting to the point where I can turn tight enough to get away with 4 heel turns.
Yeah.
But as of now, it's so ingrained in my brain. I don't know if I can change yet. And I just love how long I can hold on to it with that toe turn. I don't know. I have toyed with switching to a heel turn because I feel like I would be stronger.
Yeah.
With my entry, or with my wind into my entry. I feel like I would have a connection. But as of right now, I still really like the toe turn.
What was Judd's opinion on that when he was training you about the heel toe versus the toe turn?
He never really, and that was one thing where he and I only worked mostly on Sundays. And I would come in for his post-collegiate group. And he didn't change a lot about my throw, which was nice. We did a lot of entry work, and a lot of the work we did was on my wind. A lot of work that we did was on my wind and learning how to counter the ball.
Yeah.
He left my toe turn alone. He never even brought it up. The only thing he really got on me about with entry with foot mechanics was how my right foot would hit the ground after that wind into the entry, if that makes sense.
Flat or on the ball?
What?
Was that first wind, was it a flat foot or on the ball?
It was on the ball, but it was more of an issue of, and I'm going to draw this out for you. I had a very big misconception. I'm going to see if I can switch you around here.
You had a misconception?
I did, yes.
Okay.
So I had a very big misconception on how you are supposed to turn. So if you are starting here, my old way was if I have a foot here, I would turn all the way around in circle shapes and I would put my foot down here, and then I would work the ball back. So every turn that I would make, if you had a ball on the end of that hammer and you started off your wind and that ball was following the path all the way around, if your ball left a little trail of smoke or whatever you want to call it from all the time that your right foot was down or while you're in double support phase, it would look like little circles that would go all the way around that would end here.
Yeah.
Or that would end here, sorry, and then get put back down here. So I would make really big circles, and that's not necessarily the most conducive. How he changed the way I thought about it is it was U shapes. So I would work the ball from here all the way around And then I would pick up my foot and I would progress forward through the ring. So I was kind of over rotating prior, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
and not really moving forward. I would have really, really steep, short turns, and I wouldn't put a lot of power into the ball. Whereas here, I would turn and I would work all the way around, and then I would take a nice step forward. My hips would move forward through the turn, and then I would do the same thing from about here all the way to there. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So that was a large part of what we worked on while I worked with Judd. A large part too was learning how to build orbit. That was not something that I had really, truly, and embarrassingly enough, understood until I worked with Judd. And at that point, I want to say that was year 3 into my coaching career. So I haven't really known about this very long. And I've always heard, you build orbit with your body, but I never really understood, And so leading up until working with Judd, if this is my body here, and I'm holding the hammer, and enjoy my little stick figure drawing here.
Yeah.
Here are my legs.
That looks like it.
That's good.
Thank you. So, here, I'll add a ponytail for fun. I would try to raise the orbit by picking up my shoulders here, by shrugging. And that's creating artificial height. So what he really, really got me into was learning how to place the ball right on the entry. So I would wind, tabletop flat wind, and do just a little tiny scoop on the entry going into 1. And I remember there's this little dorm building off to the side, or it was like slightly right of center.
Yeah.
When you're standing in there in the ring at Ashland, and it's got a nice little AAU, I believe, if I remember correctly. I might be remembering some details wrong, but I remember this really tall building, and he always told me to just set the hammer right under that building as you were going through your entry. And I was like, okay, sweet. And since then, I have tried to find a similar visual everywhere I've gone. And so I would wind, and then I would do the scoop, and then I would go into it, and it would just place the ball just at the nicest, kindest, barely built orbit there. And then my hips would propel it forward. And then I would go back to this whole thing where my foot comes forward and it works the ball, and it works the ball, and it works the ball. And then eventually I would stop my foot. And that was the other really, really big thing that Judd taught me, is to stop my foot here instead of facing the field, that left foot. And then you build your hips into it, as opposed to letting yourself overturn and pull off of the ball. I would turn, and then I would stop that left foot, and I would build my hip into that left foot instead of allowing myself to overturn. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was a lot of what I worked on with Judd. Now, the more people I've talked to that has worked with Judd, there's 100 different things that he is famous for that I didn't get to experience. And there's probably 100 things that I've said that they haven't gotten to experience. And I feel like he was just a jack of all trades in the hammer. And he knew what style and what philosophy to pull where. And yes, it was always so fascinating to listen to him talk to all of the other throwers, because I feel like he fit his coaching to fit what every thrower needed. It was never cookie cutter. And his cues, while he did have his trademark cues, he wasn't afraid to, reach outside the box either, or, think of something different, or throw something at you that was maybe a little outside of the box, but it fit what you needed perfectly. So
awesome.
What did he coach you on or teach on the finish? Because you mentioned
the finish.
Yeah.
Yes. So that finish was. Oh, hold on. What am I doing here? Technology. That finish was that stopping that left foot was probably the biggest thing. Which I'm going to take you out here and demonstrate that a little bit better, because it sets the tone. Welcome to the weight room, by the way. We have our downstairs weight room. Yes.
Oh, nice.
I love bragging on this, but downstairs weight room, and then the upstairs weight room. This is like our overflow weight room. But anyway, I'm gonna take you over to the mirror here. The big thing that
Yes.
he taught me was to stop this left foot at the end of the turn, or your last turn. If this is the field, I'm stopping my left foot facing over here towards the cage, or towards the cage door per se. And I would work this foot, I will shift from heel to toe, and I would work into that hip. So instead of overturning and pulling off of it like a lot of people do, and if
Yeah.
you release like that, you pull a bunch off the ball.
Yeah.
And your foot looks like that, and you probably are going to step over the line of the ring and foul out, or pull a bunch of momentum off the ball right before you let go. You stop that foot facing the net over here. You roll heel to toe, and your hip comes around that blocked leg, and you're keeping the ball as long as possible, and you're not pulling off the ball at all.
Wow.
Yeah. And when he taught me that, oh my goodness, my perception of this throw completely changed.
Wow.
Yep.
That's very interesting. Wow.
For sure.
That's great insight.
Yeah.
So, wow.
That's probably my favorite thing that I learned from him. Honestly, it has changed my perception of how my throw needed to be. From that point on, I was so, cognizant of what needed to happen, and where I was pulling off momentum, and because not only did that teach me how to finish, it taught me how to really truly connect with the ball, and learn where I was taking away from the ball, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Did you do any different weighted hammers and short wires or anything like that with him?
Yes, because he only really got me on Sundays, we did a lot of lightweight hammers on those days. Just with how my training schedule and coaching schedule went at Tiffin. That was just what worked best, but we did a lot of really highly technical stuff. I think occasionally we would throw a 3/4 wire in there, but for the most part, those were my light days. And we did a lot of 4K, 3K, or 4K, 3.5K to 3K on those days. Sometimes I would just go in and do 4K only, but we just work on some technical stuff. Sometimes we would do those reverse right foot turns. I don't know if you're familiar with those.
No.
But I can send you some video examples later.
Yeah, please.
Basically, it's where you turn on the ball of your right foot and your whole body reverses around, and then you go into regular turns.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. That I remember that day very vividly. And the premise of it, and I might be butchering this a little bit, but was to put your body in an uncomfortable situation and learn how to dig your way out of it, and learn how to dig your way out of it quickly. Or at least that was the premise of it in that day. He might have used it for other things too. I know he had used it in the past to do alternating in between regular turns. But for that day specifically, it was learning how to dig yourself out of a problem confidently and build speed quickly, which was huge. And so that day, that was one of my favorite days, actually. That was so much fun. But yeah, that day was really cool. And I want to say it was the hammers we used that day was like a 4, 3.75, and then we dropped down to a 3.5, and then a 3K, I think is where we ended off at. But I might have the weights wrong. I'd have to go back in my notes and look and see what we actually did that day for weights, but it was something along those lines. But yeah, majority of my time with him was the light hammers, and a lot of different variations. Sometimes we'd use 4.5, sometimes, I think the heaviest thing I touched while I was there was maybe either a 5 or a 6K to get started, but then after that we would drop to the lighter stuff.
Wow.
So yeah.
Do you find yourself coaching your coach's style a little bit like his style to you?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. I remember now most of my experience with Judd leading up to being coached by him in person was mostly through messages before I moved to Tiffin. And I would send him a lot of videos. So when I was up in Minnesota, we messaged a lot there back and forth, and I would send him videos and such. And a lot of my experience with him was more through messages. And then once I finally moved to Tiffin and got to, throw with him in person, it opened up all of these different channels of like me understanding hammer, because he could actually, explain things in person and show me. And I'm a very visual learner, and
Yeah.
that helped a lot. Not saying that he didn't help me in videos. Please don't misinterpret. He
No.
helped me tremendously, through video review and messages. And I'll forever be thankful of him even just responding to my messages back then, because I I can't imagine, having this knucklehead like, hey, I'm at the time 56-meter hammer thrower. I'm 2.5 years removed from competing, and I want to keep throwing, and I'm not ready to be done. And getting that message, and oh, by the way, I have no facilities to throw, and I'm throwing in an asphalt parking lot up in Minnesota, and we just got 4 feet of snow, and I don't know how I'm gonna keep doing this, but I'm gonna keep doing this. I can't imagine what getting that message was like as a coach and being like, this kid can't be serious, you know? Um, but he answered, and he responded, and he helped me. And I remember I got this cheap, shitty little digital camera because my phone kept shutting down because of the cold. And I would shovel my little asphalt parking lot every time, and I would tie these little utility ribbons to my hammer so I wouldn't lose them in the snow. And he would always have me send not my best, but not my worst, but one of every weight of hammer that I threw that day in
Okay.
a text, and then he would go through them with me. And I wonder like what he was thinking taking me on, because no part of that, my situation, or how long I took off of throwing, should have been conducive to success, but
Yeah.
somehow we're here. And a lot of that, I would say probably 98% of it is because of him. So
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. I'm sure
yeah.
he saw the passion in this 56-meter thrower that you had,
Oh,
just observing from a distance, and was like, coaches want to coach any kid that has a great passion for any
yeah.
event or any sport. And I'm sure he saw that in you for sure. So
Oh, for sure, for sure.
yeah, not only your great throwing experience and your knowledge, you've thrown at our coach at some really cool locations, throughout the
Oh my
country and
gosh, yes.
different conferences as well.
Yes,
You've
yes.
you've seen a lot of different throwing throughout the country.
Oh my goodness, yes. I've been so lucky. I really have. Just, throwing at SIUE is where I went to undergrad, having Coach Block as a coach. There at SIUE, there was always a huge tie to Wisconsin because Dave Ostrowskis was his coach.
Yeah.
And so we would go to Wisconsin a lot for meets and such. And, Coach Block's brother went to Wisconsin. So there was always ties there. And then, being 2 hours down the road from SIU Carbondale, and having John Smith and JC both working there at the time. And towards the end of my college career, I dated a guy named Brad, who was my first post-collegiate coach. And he was absolutely phenomenal. He taught me a lot of what I knew too. And helped me kind of bridge that gap. Even though I didn't compete outdoors, he's responsible for getting me to my first USA indoors in 2020.
Oh, wow.
And learning a lot of the John Smith system, both through John and through Brad, and, occasionally going down to visit my boyfriend at the time, who lived in Carbondale, and oh shoot, now you're throwing with Deanna, like it was crazy. And I've been so lucky. I've been so tremendously lucky. And, having, Gwen and Deanna and Raven all basically 2 hours away in your backyard, and being in a sister school and seeing them compete almost every weekend was phenomenal. And then you go up to Minnesota, and, you learn a whole different ball game. That was my first experience at the D2 level, was Southwest Minnesota State. And, Kirk, my head coach, he was absolutely incredible, very, very knowledgeable. He had been coaching longer than I had been alive, and I've just been so lucky to have such great role models all the way through. And briefly worked with Peter Miller up at the University of Minnesota. Got to pick his brain a lot over Zoom, which was absolutely phenomenal. I learned so many new things through him, and then transitioned to Judd, and going through the whole COVID break and everything like that, and then transitioning to Judd at the end of it was craziness, because I wasn't sure if I was ever going to be throwing again, if I was being completely honest with you. And transitioning to Judd and then moving to Tiffin and having Ray Robinson be my boss for about a week, and then he took the job at Iowa, and no point in this did I know where I was going, like a couple months down the road.
Did you want to coach in college? Did you want to get into
the Texas Track and Field Coaches Association? Coaches education through our annual winter clinic, the state's #1 track and field clinic. Texas Track and Field promotion, our postseason Meet of Champions, lobbying efforts with the state's governing bodies, the Texas Track and Field Hall of Fame. If it involves Texas Track and Field, we're at the forefront. Join our mission in continuing to make Texas Track and Field the nation's best.
No, that's the funny part.
Okay.
So I wanted to be an art teacher.
Person or something?
No. So I wanted to be an art teacher. And I actually went into my 4th year of college dead set on teaching art at Collinsville High School. It was this high school that I had fallen in love with. I had done all of my high school placements there. I loved the cooperating teacher I worked with, Emma. She actually lives here in Texas, which is kind of crazy. Not in the same part of Texas as me, but she was close to retirement, and she and I had just hit it off so well. And she knew she was close to retirement. I knew I was close to graduating, and so I was being sneaky. I was trying to match up my graduation with her retirement. I might have taken a couple of extra classes to make it happen, but we were going to make it happen. Like, I wanted that job so badly. And then I get to, my 5th year, and I'm out of eligibility. I'm not competing at the college level anymore, but I had a 5th year of school left. And at SIUE, they had a deal where if your degree takes longer than your eligibility, if you work somewhere in athletics, then they will pay for your 5th year of school. And I was like, shoot, sign me up. I'll be doing the student teaching thing, and I'll work some basketball game concession stands or something really not time consuming or stressful at all. And that'll be it. I will just walk right into this Collinsville High School art teaching job, and I'm not going to worry about it. And that is not at all what happened. So we got to the summer of after I finished my eligibility, and I was going into my 5th year, and the jumps coach we had at SIUE had quit and had moved on. And Coach Block's like, "Hey, I hear you're in the 5th year program. You wanna be my student assistant?" And I was like, "Sure, why not? I'll help out. Why not?" I kind of was like toying with learning the John Smith lifting system just for funsies. And then all of a sudden the guy I was dating was like, "Dude, you really need to try this. You could only squat like 205 coming out of college, and you're a 56-meter hammer thrower. Like, what could happen?" And I was like, why not? I was a little bit more enthusiastic than why not? But I didn't know what can of worms I was opening here. And so I wrote John Smith, I asked for permission and all that. And I was like, all right, we're going to do this little science experiment on my body and just see what happens. As we're getting through, I'm student teaching, I'm stressing, and I'm staying up way too late, but I'm getting really, really freaking strong, and it's fun. And I'm enjoying working for the track team. And I was timing distance runners during cross country season and getting every mosquito bite imaginable. And I was going to the cross country meets with them, and I was their designated strong person and dragging their tent around, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun. And then we get to indoor season, and Coach Block has some health issues where he needed to step away and get surgery for a little bit. And all of a sudden, I was stepping up a little bit more and a little bit more and helping my teammates and coaching them and after hours after I'd get done at student teaching. And it was a lot. It was a full day's work and a half, you know. I would start my day at 7:30 in the morning at student teaching. I would do all the way through 4:30, and then afterwards I would show up at the Vidal Bean Center and I would coach. And all of a sudden I was home at like 9 o'clock at night, and I was so chronically tired. And then I would remember, oh shoot, I still have to pass my Ed TPA, and it's the test they take in the state of Illinois for teacher licensing and all that jazz. And I was working on that probably until about midnight, 1 a.m. every night, and I was just so chronically tired. But I had so much fun doing it that I didn't even realize it that I was tired, you know. And so did that all throughout indoor. The throwers did really, really well given the circumstances. Coach Block came back for outdoor, thankfully full good health and all that, you know. And then I got to applying for teaching jobs. And I absolutely bombed my opportunity at getting that Collinsville High School job because I couldn't answer why I wanted to teach. I kept getting stumped. And I was just like, well. And then I realized after the third or fourth teacher interview that I was like, I don't want to teach. This is not for me. And I started applying. I talked to my cooperating teacher. She's like, well, if you keep getting stumped at that question, then that should tell you something.
Yeah.
And so I applied for 2 jobs. It was Bryant University and Southwest Minnesota State. And I was already leaning towards Southwest Minnesota State because they had a coaching master's degree that I could get at the same time. And I was like, well, if I want to be a coach, I probably should not have an art degree. That's probably not going to get me very far. And I should learn a little bit more about it. Whereas Brian would have been a full-time job just walking straight into it, and I wouldn't have gotten a master's degree out of the deal. And so thankfully, SMSU was the first one that answered my phone call. I did that Zoom interview, and I remember just chatting. And at one point in time, that interview went so much longer than I thought it was going to. And I ended up getting the job and signed everything, moved to Minnesota, had a great time. Man, I loved that experience on my resume. I loved the throwers that I worked with. It was just overall a really good step in the right direction for me. So
Wow, and look where you are now.
yes.
That's like
That's a great sign.
you know, we were talking yesterday on the way home from practice. Yesterday was my birthday, and she asked me,
Oh, happy late birthday.
she was like, did you think you would be doing this at the age you are now? And I was like, no, not at all. Doing this club and all the other stuff we do,
Podcast and all that
podcast
stuff.
and lifting and everything we do
Mhm.
24/7. And it's, you know, we love it and we have a great passion for it. But just like yourself, I never thought I'd be doing this when I was coming out of college or in my 20s or even 30s. And, you know,
Oh,
just
for sure.
God just kind of closes this door, and you change directions and you go through another door, and there's another path, and you're kind of going down it, and, you know, and just, you know, trials and tribulations along the road, so to speak. So,
Oh, for sure. For sure.
so you
And
grew
I
up in
will
Nebraska,
say,
is that right?
what?
You grew up in Nebraska?
Yes. On the east side of the state, it's a little town called Wahoo. It's about 4,000 people, so it's not a lot of people, but it's about 45 minutes out of the west edge of Omaha and out of the north edge of Lincoln. So not too far from civilization, as we always say, but it's a really small town. So
Were you brothers, sisters, mom and dad, raised by your mom and dad and all that?
yep. I have one sister named Becky. She currently lives in Virginia. She got her master's degree in architecture and civil planning. And so she's got an incredible job out in Fairfax, Virginia. Really, really successful young lady, as well as just an awesome sister. And both my parents still live in Nebraska. My dad lives in Wahoo. Met the love of his life at 62 years old. And they're just the cutest. They're the cutest. They're both retired and have a camper and a cat. and they pick a place every month that they go to. And then my mom met the love of her life late in life as well, and they're just the cutest. So they live in Omaha with my mom's dog, and they live on a lake, and they're just the cutest little lake couple, and they take their lake pictures, and they're just living the life. They really are. So
Wow.
Awesome.
yeah.
Well, we always kind of ask this, everybody's introduction to throwing. What was yours, and when, and who had an influence, for you at maybe 7th grade or 8th grade or whenever you started?
Oh, for sure. So I really got into all of track and field around 5th grade. I was never really hell-bent on just throwing. And it's weird. It's really weird, but I was never really hell-bent on just throwing because I enjoyed it all. I started off with high jump and discus. My mom would not let me not touch a throwing implement. And she's like, "You are too tall to not be throwing." And I was a 136-foot discus thrower back in the day, I think is what she was. So she was like, "You are not touching a discus. Like, you're gonna at least try it." And I was like, "Okay, whatever." But man, I loved high jump for some reason. And I was just smitten by it for some reason. I loved high jump. And then I also loved the short sprints. And I got into junior high, and I would do shot disc, high jump, and I think the 200 were what I liked in junior high. Got into high school, and I liked cross country for some odd reason. And I would run cross country, and I was god awful at it. I was lucky if I ever didn't come in last place, but man, I loved it for some reason. And went to college with the possibility of being a multi-athlete. Got there, and they're like, "Nah, you're a thrower. You're a hammer thrower. You're not fast. Don't kid yourself." So I did it all, but at one point in high school, I was maybe a long jumper. Tried triple jump, but I didn't have the coordination for it. I was running everything from the 200 to the 400 to occasionally, I think I tried the 800 a couple of times. I was running cross country. I liked it all. I really did. I threw javelin in high school. I tried hammer in high school and really, really liked it. So I had kind of maybe an inkling that I was going to end up a hammer thrower someday down the road.
Okay.
But I was still really holding on to that being a heptathlete idea until I got to college, and they're like, "Yeah, no, nope.
Did you play
So-
basketball or any other sports?
Briefly. I did basketball for not even a whole season. I hate to admit it. And volleyball for about 2 seasons. And I switched volleyball for cross country. Loved cross country. I don't know what it was, but the chokehold that cross country had on me. Oh man, I didn't know I could love something and be so bad at it at the same time. Oh, it was so much fun. I was absolutely
Love the
terrible.
shin splits, the sweat, all that stuff.
Yep. There was just something about coming in dead last every time that just made my day, I think. I don't know. But I loved it for some reason. And then I swapped basketball for dance team, which I think actually really did help me in college. Just because, you see something and you imitate it, and you have to try and imitate it perfectly, and you practice imitating something as perfectly as you can. And then there's a timing aspect to it. And I think all of that really helped me with college throwing a lot more than, say, basketball probably would have. But that's just me. And, I did dance growing up as well. And so I think that was familiar for me. I really do. Because I think a lot of, if you look at childhood development and getting kids into dance, I think is very valuable. Because nowadays you notice a lot of kids really don't have that cross body experience. What one kid can do with their right hand, they really struggle to do with their left. And I think that was one thing that helped me a lot later in becoming a college athlete was, having to constantly imitate other things in dance, because I did it from I think kindergarten through 5th grade, and then almost all of high school. So 3 of my 4 years in high school. There was a lot of coordination that came from it, and a lot of timing from it. And then being able to turn on the balls of my feet. really, really helped me tremendously. And just learning that balance and being flexible. I think that was the one reason why I never had a severe college injury that required a surgery, which not a lot of people can say. So just keeping my muscles very, very flexible, I think helps a lot, and helped with, overuse injuries. You are always so right-sided, and if you're not stretching that out, then you're eventually going to do some damage to your body. And thankfully I didn't run into that until 26, 25 years old. So, but yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. Are you? Well, sure. Well, I tell you what, Angelo State has got a diamond in you.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I'm not going to bullshit you. We interview a lot of coaches, and all I say to Texas, but girl, you have got the impression, the passion,
The knowledge,
the characteristics, how you just mannerisms to be successful. And it wouldn't
Oh,
shock
thank
me
you.
here in 4 to 5 years or 10 years if you're at a Power 5 kicking ass. Because I really
thank
see
you.
you maybe taking those next steps to get there. Because man, you're well spoken, you're very knowledgeable, but you're very humble and polite. And man, you got it all. So I just wish you the best, and sky's the limit for sure.
Oh, thank you so much. I will say I love where I'm at right now, and I don't have any intention of leaving anytime soon. I have such a tremendous support system here that I didn't know I needed until I got here. I cannot rave enough about my head coach. Since getting here, I've just had so much support, not only for me on a coaching standpoint, but for me as a throwing standpoint too. Like, I cannot rave enough about Coach Tiffin. He really supports me on both sides of that. Just not just with the coaching, but being able to correct me when I need it, and support me when I need it, and be there for me when I need it. Like, I couldn't be where I'm at right now and doing what I'm doing without that kind of positive support system. So
And Angelo State's they have a strong reputation in the state of Texas, and with what's going on with football and what they've done with the pass throwers, discus throwers, and Daisy, and some of that stuff like that.
For sure.
Yeah, it's a place where you can turn an average thrower into an All-American for sure. So you just
for sure.
Campus, for sure.
Yes, it's really truly an honor to be here. I'm so blessed and lucky to have this position, and to be here and be able to take it on and make it my own. I really am.
For sure. So
Oh my goodness.
well, thank you so much. I've heard good things about you just through word of mouth, and
I appreciate
everything I've
it.
ever heard is obviously true, and that's why I wanted to get you on to hear your story and let people know what you're doing.
Oh, sorry. What did you say? Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Let us know if we can do anything for you, okay?
Absolutely. I really appreciate it. Have a good night, you guys.
Thank you. We'd like to thank Lizzie for being on. Just what a great personality, and what a great young coach.
Yeah.
The
I want to throw for it.
Yeah, the sport of track and field is lucky to have somebody like her with all the great experiences she's had, from throwing in college to where she's been early in her life to her first coaching job to where she's at in Angelo State. Just what a great experience. I'm so grateful too that she actually did the diagram and broke out the marker and did that, and just really showed the demonstration of how she does the wines and stuff. Great teaching tools there, great learning for both of us. That is actually the first I think we've ever had anybody do that on the podcast, and so that was really cool.
So make sure you watch the YouTube. If you're listening to this on podcast, you need to watch our YouTube.
Yes, for sure. But just great knowledge and just a great passion for track and field. But also a great passion for life. And I'm just, Angelo State's very, very fortunate to have her. And I'm sure, like I said, in the next 5 to 10 years or whenever, she's going to be at a D1 power school, because she's going to be a heck of a coach for sure.
What I loved is she is so, what's the word, coachable herself and willing to learn.
Oh, yeah.
Like, as a young coach, knowing that she doesn't know it all, working with, was it Mark, was his name there, and just calling people and getting help and doing all that, just so she's a sponge. That's what she's a sponge for learning. And because of that, that makes her a great coach and also
Yeah,
a
and a
great
great
thrower.
tip too about the journaling as well. If you're a young thrower and you're not journaling, I would encourage you to. And journaling doesn't have to meet 2 pages.
Yeah.
It can be power dots of 10, 5 or 6 of just your feelings and whatever, just as a mental reference. And if you want to write something more in depth, you can. But just journaling and keeping that record is so important, especially when you can look back upon it and reference it, 6 months ago or whenever.
Especially things like I threw this way, I changed my
Yeah.
foot, it felt good, whatever. And use technology. Said the notes app. That's
Yeah.
cool.
That is pretty cool.
Good stuff.
That is pretty cool.
Good stuff. All right, we want to thank our sponsors for episode 116, season 7, Texas Track and Field Coaches Association. Go to ttfca.org for all the latest in track and field. High school meets have been going, so look all that up. You can see ranks, top thrower, all that. What's all in there?
Texas Track and Field Coaches Association. You can see the rules, current meets going out.
Okay.
The locations for the regional meets, the location for Texas relays, all that. So that's all in there.
At fourthrows.com, quality implements priced right. Use the code TalkingThrows10 to get 10% off. If you're in the Austin area, ready up AD, give Zach Phillips a call at 512-507-8347. Or look him up, follow him on Instagram. Also check out his program, Basic Throw Strength, that is through the Train Heroic website. We've got a code for you. Use Throws10 to get 20% off of that. NTX Timing, let Carl Hornback and his crew manage your meets. Their logo is "You Ain't Waiting on Us." You get these meets run correctly, and contact NTX Timing.
Hello, Talking Throws Texas podcasters. I'm Bruce Caldwell. I'm here today to introduce the Fiber Sport Discus. Yes, many of you thought I only made great vaulting poles. I have been bringing quality discuses to the throwers' hands for over 40 years. First as Cantabrian USA representative, then for the past 10 years as the Nelco discus distributor. I introduced the yellow-plated discus for the plastic's best durability. If your Fiber Sport discus breaks, we replace it. Our studies have reached into the science of using a wind tunnel and adding microchips to the discus to find the spin, the gravity, the flight stability of the discus. We have found it's not about rim weight anymore. It's more about creating a balanced stability to allow the discus to fly and surf the wind. Our new Fiber Sport discus is made to be selected to fit your needs, no matter the weather, no matter the conditions. Check out our discus selection guide at fibersportdiscus.com and find a dealer in your area that sells our fine product. Thank you, Jason Janelle, for allowing me to talk with your listeners on Talk and Throws Texas Style.
And then Big Frogs of Colleyville for all our embroidery and printing needs. And then lifting DFW. If you're ready to get get you lifting on, we got you there. And the Throwing Factory. We've got shopping page, podcast. If